Stacy, a little printer problem down here, so if I missed something on the agenda, let me know.
Okay.
Okay, I just flipped to 10 o'clock. If we can, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we are officially called to order here. Commissioner Paradiso, would you favor us with a prayer, please?
Thank you. Let us get in a prayerful moment. Dear God, we continue to pray that our fractured nation heals and that the divisions that separate us are removed and that we can come together as a country. The pandemic has also posed challenges, but in many ways has brought us together with our families and our communities. We ask that you continue to support and reach out and bless all the people that are involved in distributing the vaccine, all those that are getting the vaccine and those that are in line, that you will continue to, we know you're the great physician, continue to put your hand on the process as we pray for unity and health. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner. Nikki, roll call.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Here.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Here.
Commissioner Schuff,
Here.
Perfect. Okay, so now I need a motion, gentlemen, to accept the digital audio video recording of January 7th and Monday, January 11th.
I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion about those minutes? Hearing none. Nikki?
Commissioner Schuff,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes. Okay, Stacy, we are at the administrator's report.
I don't have a report today. I do have a request I got from Mark Zimmerman, the engineer. He is in need of a new computer for tax map. He has a 2007 computer and a 2013 computer that has been, he's kept alive. And, he didn't ask last year. I told him we could have got it out of the coronavirus money, but he was trying to be cautious of the funds. So he only asked it if he needed it. So I've got a request totaling $1,131.15 that will go into the tax map equipment line, as long as you guys are okay with that.
Okay. You need a motion or you just need our approval?
I will add it to the rest of them if you're okay with that. I just wanted to bring it up.
I'm okay with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll add it when I do the new business.
Okay. Okay, commissioners reports, Mr. Shaw, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirschner. It's been a good week here so far. This morning we did the county coroner at WTTF, so gave a brief update of what's going on here to our folks out in the county via radio signal. Had a meeting this week with county engineer. I got to tour the facility, sit down with him and meet some of the employees out there in that department. Was very impressed. Seems like Mark really knows how to stretch a dollar, and they do a lot of work in-house. I was just thoroughly pleased to see everything that they can do and accomplish out there, and it was a very productive meeting. He also explained his budget in depth to me and filled me in on a lot of different areas. Also met with the county prosecutor this week. went over kind of the same things as I did with the engineer, with their departments, their needs, that sort of thing with Derek, and that was also very productive. Today we'll be doing some land bank stuff. See, we have Mayor Mods on there. He was, if you're free later, Mayor, we might need your autograph here on a check for the land bank. Also meeting with Fostoria, Economic Development Chairperson Renee Smith here later today. Got a meeting set up. EMA meeting went well this week. Still meeting with department heads, various township trustees, and also had our GL CAP meeting here just a few days ago. Seen a lot of new faces on there. We are restructuring right now, reorganizing. The only person I really recognized on there was Audrey Flood. It was always nice to see her, have her on there, but looking forward to working with that group and everything they set out to accomplish. I got to talk with Paul Harrison this week, go over some things, and been out there, like I said, talking to some of the village mayors and just getting the lay of the land. But it was a very productive week, and everybody's been very helpful thus far. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner. Sounds like you've been busy out meeting folks. Good for you.
Enjoying
Anthony.
it.
Yeah, very good. We met yesterday, Stacy, John, and I, and handed the keys for the museum to the foundation. I see Stacy nodding. So yeah, there could be a finally, I guess, or an exclamation point. But we're looking forward to them taking things over. We plan on attending one of their board meetings, in the near future. Stacy, John, and I, just to go and get after they get their feet wet here a little bit, maybe answer some questions and just have some understandings on what each role is. So pretty excited about that. I have the advisory board for the museum sitting over here on my desk. Stacy's going to help me kind of countyize it so that it fits how we do things, right, Stace? Did I say that right? So we'll be moving forward with that. Very pleased with the EMS call on Monday. Tyler, you mentioned that. I think in fairness to the process, we had our first meeting in December. I think there was some distrust or nobody really knew what the purpose of the meeting was. So we had I thought, a fairly good meeting. Then we set up our follow-up meeting, which we just had this Monday. Of course, with Christmas and New Year's and everything, I'm not sure we got a whole lot accomplished, other than I do feel we have a nice baseline now, and we've agreed on a process going forward. And I actually received a couple calls, positive calls. And so I'm looking forward to the February meeting and moving this process forward. Other than that, just working on a lot of little projects that I have, and I guess that's all I have now, Commissioner Kirshner.
Okay, thank you. Before I forget, Stacy, John Spar had mentioned use of the safety service building for a blood drive. Do we need to approve that today?
That has kind of been resolved. They are going to find another location for February.
Okay. Okay, so we're okay with that.
Yep.
Good memory.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a busy week for all of us. As Tony and Tyler mentioned, the EMS call was very productive. Met with the Ritz Theater this morning. They're moving right along. It's been a difficult period of time for them, especially during this pandemic. But they're managing through it and doing a nice job, and I congratulate them for that. Okay, Stacy, it's getting to the point. I think that the veteran services are on the line. I know it's not quite 10:15, but if they're ready, I think we can go ahead and get them up.
Sure. The Galaxy S7, I think, is Tara.
Yes.
Hey.
Tara, yeah.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. So would you like me to start?
Yes, please. If you're ready, that'd be great.
Okay. First, we'd like to start out by thanking the county commissioners for always making the veterans in Seneca County a priority. And then second, I would like to let everyone know that for each county dollar this office spends, the VA expends $50 to that dollar. And that money spent shopping and buying property, it helps with the growth of this community. So we're really proud about the work that we're doing out here. We do have high hopes to resume services that had to be suspended for the time being and expand some of the services in the next year, as soon as we are able to do so safely. We hold a lot of pride in our community, and we're really happy with how we've all managed to pull together despite all the challenges COVID has presented. It seems as though we've all been able to adapt. I'm really happy about that. And with that, we are very surprised about the unexpected economic growth in Seneca County. Expected something totally different this year. So we're very pleased with that. I don't think any of my commissioners here today desire to speak unless you want to speak to them. So that's really all I have for today.
Terry, you might want to one more time mention the Veteran of the Year. We did put a proclamation out, but we haven't really formally recognized him through your group.
Well, that's one of the events that we truly do hope that we are able to address as soon as we're able to do so. We're all very sad about the passing of Charlie. And we're also sad that we weren't able to recognize him on a little more grand scale because he deserved it, to be frank. But, oh, I just found out that I'm facing the wrong way. That's why you can't see me. Now you can see me.
I wasn't sure, Tara, what was going on, but good.
We thought you were
Seriously, guys.
Out here this morning with technology that I'm a little flustered, I have to tell you. So I do apologize for you having to look at the wall in the conference room next door to our office for the last 5 minutes. However, to start back, we are very saddened by the loss of Charlie. He did not get honored the way we wanted to. COVID has prevented that for us. And so we do intend to hold a recognition dinner for Charlie at a later date as soon as we're able to. In addition to the 2021 Veteran of the Year dinner, we've had some discussion on how we'll handle that. But for the time being, everything's frozen because there's no safe way to do it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing us up to date.
I will show you the budget adjustments that'll need to be made due to the increase in the millage. The commissioners have always appropriated all of the millage. Oops, wrong one. Nope, that's it. Has always appropriated all the millage that the auditor has estimated. This year, as you can see, the millage had went up with the way the economics went. So the increase is $117,208.96. And you can see the lines that they had increased. Veteran Services has always worked wonderful with us. If we don't do raises, they honor that. They've always been wonderful to work with. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, they give us quite a bit of the millage back. They don't spend everything. They're very frugal with their money. They spend it on the needs that they have. So you can see the difference here in column F. These are the changes that I'll make as a sup app to get that millage to them. I don't know if you have anything, Tara, to that you want to add to these.
The increases that are reflected on that do complement what I've already said. We're hoping to be able to reach more veterans. What we would like to do is be able to make Seneca County very enticing for veterans to live. to increase our population and in turn, increase our economic growth.
But Tara, I want to commend you and your people for the great work you do at Veteran Services, and I sincerely mean that. And Stacey, if you need a motion, do you need a motion for this?
I will ask that Kylie or Nikki get these into the system. But if you want to, we can either do that now or we can do it when we do the rest of them. It's up to you.
No, it's up to you. Would you prefer we wait?
No, go ahead, since I got it up on the screen.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we accept the Veteran Services 2021 budget as presented by Stacey.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Tara, I would just echo the fact that in the 6 years that I've been here, every year has been a pleasure to work with all you guys. We have attended, I think, virtually every event that we could as it relates to veterans, and many times we pray for them as part of the meeting. So just thank you very much, and God bless everyone involved. Any additional comments? Hearing none. Yes, Tyler.
I had a quick question for Tara. I'm sorry. In your opinion, or with what you've been doing, what do you see as some of the bigger obstacles here facing some of the veterans? Is it finding housing for the individuals? Is it mental health issues? What are some of the bigger things kind of facing what you do?
Mental health is always a big issue with veterans in so many respects, but one of the challenges we have here in Seneca County that we don't face real often, however, it does become a big issue when you face it, is homelessness. We have Morrison House, but sometimes when you're dealing with veterans, they might have a situation that's a little different and they would have restrictions. Morrison House has restrictions. And so we don't have anywhere other than the Cherry Street Mission to send veterans. We have historically tried to organize stays in hotels, but that's really expensive and it doesn't last for long and it doesn't resolve the situation. WSOS has a program, but it's all about funding, and their funding comes and it goes. So it just kind of depends on funding at the time and different things. But that, honestly, mental health and housing, when it comes to homelessness, those are probably two of the biggest issues that we face, that we have trouble solving. Otherwise, I think we're able to deliver a lot of services to veterans. The healthcare services, we're a little way away from Toledo, but we have transportation for veterans. So that does solve some of that issue with receiving the healthcare. I personally use VA healthcare and I'm very pleased with the services I get. I would say it's as good, if not better, than the civilian sector. I have very little complaint.
Tara, have you had any coordination with the Homeless Coalition? I think it's started or managed through United Way. That there is a group out there looking to do something more permanently for those folks who have a problem with housing?
I personally have not, to my knowledge, had any contact with them, but I would be open to having contact with them, definitely.
Yeah, that's, I see we have a note from Audrey that says she could connect you with the Homeless Coalition, so you could at least add your concerns with that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Nikki, I need a roll call.
Commissioner Schuff,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes. Okay, any additional old business to be brought before the commission? Okay, we go on to new business. The first item on the agenda is the treasurer's budget. I guess that Paul, you have the floor.
Yeah, I do. Good morning, commissioners. If I could, I would ask if I could first read a prepared statement that I have. It takes like 3 minutes to kind of put things in perspective from where I've seen things happening here. First of all, I believe that the issues that we're having right now stems from a meeting that Stacy and I had about a week ago that we disagreed on the authority of the commissioners to impact the treasurer's DRETAC budget as a whole and land bank's revenue. And so I requested an opinion from the prosecutor to see.
Oh, you might want to define for the masses what RE-tax is.
It stands for delinquent real estate tax. It's a penalty process that's assessed when someone doesn't pay their taxes on time. And so the DRETAC budget is a payment that we receive from the commissioners each year for that amounts to 2.5% of the total penalties that's collected. The prosecutor also receives 2.5% and the land bank receives 5%. So when we talk about the DRETAC, the treasurer's DRETAC budget first, when I turned in a budget, I submitted $55,000 in revenue and $33,000 in carryover for a total of $88,000. Stacy removed $5,000 of equipment, $2,000 of advertising, $1,000 of travel for a total of $80,000. And that was what I was objecting to, I guess. And she said I wasn't submitting a balanced budget because I was using carryover from the year before in order to balance the budget, which is what I've done the last 2 years. The money, as I explained, is there as a result of us being entitled to the 2.5% that the commissioners are required to deposit into that fund. That's the only source of revenue for that fund. And that's the only thing we can spend money on is to use it to collect delinquent taxes. The concern is that if I continue, the concern that was expressed to me was that if I continue to spend my DRETAC dollars the way I have in the past, there'll be no carryover. And in fact, the reason for the significant increase in expenditures, I feel like are twofold. First of all, our treasurer's general fund budget was reduced by 20% in 2020 because of COVID. We were directed to reduce it by 20%. I don't have a large enough budget that I can just cut everything by 20% to achieve that. There's some things that we are required to spend money on that we couldn't cut at all. And so as a result, I had to cut my salaries budget for my employees by 46% in order to meet the overall objective of 20% reduction on the general fund budget. In order to continue to meet the payroll, then I had to start paying that shortage out of my treasurer's DRETAC. I also feel like the year before, which had probably been prior to me being here, would have been the first year that the treasurer's office really started actively administering the NIP program for the land bank. And I would guess that there were probably some additional expenditures there that they hadn't encountered in the past. And we were receiving, the treasurer's office had opted out of receiving any reimbursement to do that. And so it probably came out of the DRETAC. I wasn't here, but that's what I'm speculating. So I was forced to cut my salaries by 46%. I was trying to be a player so that I could meet the overall objective of 20% reduction. And instead now I'm being criticized for my increase in spending from the DRETAC fund. The second question posed to the prosecutor concerned the land bank revenue. Land bank is a separate entity from the county, and its budget is set by the land bank board based again on revenue and carryover. When the budget was approved by the board, our carryover was estimated to be 200,000 and our revenue was conservatively estimated at 100,000 for a total of $300,000. Stacy told me that she never saw a number for our revenue and that it was my responsibility to provide that to her. The only way I've ever done that is through my budget by entering it at the bottom of the budget, showing what my anticipated revenue was and what my anticipated carryover was. And those numbers were at the bottom of my budget and it showed the $100,000. Instead, she reduced the revenue back to the previous year's starting number of $90,000. We ended up actually collecting $98,000 last year for the land bank. And so that was why I put it at 100,000 for this year. I have since talked to the county auditor and discovered that they do put a report together. We're speculating that it possibly was being sent to Stacy by the auditor's office, but the auditor's office doesn't know who was doing that. They think maybe it was Mary Jane until she retired possibly. And that's why Stacy wouldn't have gotten her report this year. But that report shows that our revenue is anticipated to be $110,000. And so I was even below what that figure was. I realized Stacy didn't have that number, but she did have the $100,000 number and instead she reduced it to 90.
Hey,
So,
Hey, Paul, this is Tony. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
okay.
that 100 versus 110, that's a land bank discussion, not a treasurer budget discussion, right?
Well, the money goes into the treasurer's DRETAC first and then is dispersed out to the land bank from the treasurer's DRETAC.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a budget discussion or not.
Okay, but your point is that you and Stacy disagreed on that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Thank you.
So to kind of summarize where we're at with the land bank then, with our revenue at 110,000, our carryover at 131,000, and we still have reimbursements due from the state for $184,000. That totals $415,000. I estimated 300 and Stacy reduced it to 90, which obviously impacts our budget and I believe was not correct. So I'm respectfully requesting the following under the Treasurer's General Fund. First of all, our supplies were cut from a level of $9,000 last year to $8,000 this year. I would like that put back to the $9,000. We spent approximately $11,000, a little over $11,000 last year by supplementing DRETAC funds. Contract repairs, I had put in at a number of $600. Previous to that, it was $200. We use that money to repair the scanners that we have here in the office that are getting older. And we've had to send at least one in. Well, we have sent a minimum of one in each year. And it costs about $200 to have those rebuilt. I'm afraid because of their age that we're going to reach a point where we may have to send two in at the same time or in the same year. And the $200 won't cover that. So I removed $600 from contract services. I'm sorry, I removed $400 from contract services and moved up into contract repairs to cover that item so that it was budget neutral. Stacy put it back down to $200 and I'm not sure where the 400 went back to or if it went anywhere. So we need to get that back up to $600. Advertising is another issue that I'm being told is going to be taken care of today. We have advertising budget in the Treasurer's General Fund for real estate ads. We have money in the DRETAC fund for penalty type ads, and I believe those should be kept separate. to use DRETAC money for other than collection of penalties, I think would be a violation of the Ohio Revised Code. And then I understand that we also have an issue with the employee salaries amount that we were told to start with for this year, and that that amount did not include the raises that were given last year before COVID. And so there's a $2,200 issue there as well. So the total increase requested for the Treasurer's General Fund is $4,618. Under the Treasurer's DRETAC, I think we need to get the equipment expenditure back up to $5,000. That was reduced to $0. We need advertising expenditure of $2,000. That was reduced to $0, and a travel expense of $1,000, which was also reduced to $0 for this year. Again, I explained to Stacy that I am the one that goes out now for the prosecutor's office when they're foreclosing on properties to take pictures and do an inventory. And so there is some travel there involved that I feel like I need to be keeping track of and possibly turning in. And then we also need to reinstate the revenue and carry over to $88,000. It's estimated to actually be about $90,940. So we would still have a cushion there. And then under the land bank, we need to reinstate the revenue and carry over to $300,000, leaving a $115,000 cushion. That was reduced to the $90,000. And I guess finally, I would like to offer, as I have in the past, and I would hope that you could accept my offer to meet with you during the budget process so that we can avoid situations like this in the future. I've offered both years that I've been here and that I've been involved in the process, and the offer was not accepted. I'm trying to make an attempt to communicate in any way that I can so that we can move on. Thank you.
Okay, Stacy, you have some input on this?
Absolutely. He is correct. The land bank is not part of my budget process. That was approved by the land bank board. The amount I needed to know for the land bank is for the transfer of what is going to be collected, so the DRETAC can transfer that over to the land bank. Paul had sent me his budget and it did not have that line on it. It's his DRETAC other expense line, not included. I had sent him an email, asked for that number, and he said the land bank was not my concern. I said, well, I need to have that so you can get the money transferred over. He said that I needed to refer to the land bank budget, which again is not my budget. So the only number I had is to revert to last year's initial requested 90,000. Now that we know there was an additional revenue requested, then, you know, we have no issue with increasing it by the 10,000 or 20,000 if there was an additional request made. Normally, all revenue requests go to the auditor and then goes to budget commission. I do not certify revenue for either of these. So that would be the land bank issue, just miscommunication. I think he thought I was talking about the land bank budget, and all I was referring to was the line that needed to be budgeted in his DRETAC line to be able to do the transfer. As for his general fund, as you can see, he referenced the budget cuts last year. The initial budget was 73,000 in salaries. He used 71,000. So all of the decreases that were made due to the coronavirus, most of it was reestablished. The total budget, initial budget was 209, total spent was 206. So I'm not sure, where the 40% went, because this is the initial budget, this is the actual budget, and it was less than $3,000 off. So looking at 2021, as I do with all budgets, I don't just look at 2020. I have to look back at the history, see what is spent, see what we've done. Paul had came in at the fall of 2020 and had told the commissioners that he was eliminating a leased piece of equipment that was at the basement of the RTA, saying that it would save the county up to $14,000. Actually, I think it was a little bit more. One, for the lease of the machine. Two, the outsourcing of the tax bills, which would in turn give us a better rate on our postage. So in essence, there should have been some reduction in the budget to reflect that savings, and there wasn't. So the supplies were reduced because historically the supplies hadn't been more than $8,000, as you can see in the budget history. So that's why it was reduced to 1,000. Again, when we did budgets, we were working with a 17.5 instead of the $18 million. So I was going through each budget, trying to find cuts to make to hit our budget. As you know, we had requests of 18.4 million. We only had 17.5 approved by revenue. So the auditor required by the state, we had to do a software licensing services line. So Paul adjusted those. This is what he requested, the 13,000 and the 17.7. I'm not sure where you paid your contract for the mail or for the postage machine or the machine you got rid of at the basement, whether it was the leased or the contract services, but there was not a savings shown. As for the repairs, the commissioners have never refused additional money if repairs were needed. As you can see historically, there's never been, at least back to 2016, more than $200 spent. So I just kept it at the budget that was submitted for 2020, as the commissioners asked. Travel, as we talked during budgets, I had removed basically travel out of everybody's budget because of COVID. There's not any travel going on. We're all doing Zoom meetings, understanding that there may be travel still required and that the commissioners would address that on an as needed basis. Budgets are adjusted all the time. This isn't set in stone what you would be spending through 2021 if additional money was needed. The advertising and printing, I did have conversations with Paul. Historically, that is, again, been paid for out of the DRETAC fund. And I had asked him the justification. I was not given a justification. So the advertising and printing was removed until an explanation was given, and it wasn't given until after the budgets were passed. So, it's just a lack of communication, not my communication as well. But, we have to work with the numbers we're given. The DRETAC fund, $5,000 in equipment. The commissioners usually ask if there's an equipment purchase it be justified because purchase orders for equipment need to be specific. So 5,000, just because you think you might spend something, the auditor's office requires it to be specific. So I asked for specifications. As you can see, there's nothing but that's been spent in equipment for the last 5 years. All I asked for was additional information. I don't think it's unreasonable to remove it. As Paul said, his revenue was projected at 55,000. He indicated that the carryover was going to be about 33. My concern was that we typically don't budget carryover that would cover long-term operating expenses. And if the anticipated revenue was 55,000, salaries alone is going to be 55,000. So my concern was for him to think about is that it would slowly eat away at his carryover and he would be short. So as you can tell, I didn't take it down to what the projected revenue was. I reduced it by 8,000 for the equipment that I was asking for justification on, the travel expenses, and the advertising that I was asking. It was questions, and I was told it wasn't my responsibility. It wasn't my duty. My duty is to give my board a balanced budget to review and pass, and I think that's what I did. So if you have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I had planned on today doing the $1,000 for advertising, which I told Paul, and also the additional 10 for the land bank, which if there needs to be 20, we can change it to that as well.
Okay, so let me get into some bigger picture questions here, if I may.
Sure.
The DRETAX money, who has actual control of that money? Is it the part of the general fund for the county? Is it at the sole discretion of the treasurer? Where does that responsibility lie?
That money is set by Ohio Revised Code. It's 2.5% of the delinquent real estate.
Yeah.
And that is Paul's budget. That money cannot be used anywhere else. But the sole responsibility of the board is to pass budgets. And this is a budget that is included in our non-general fund budgets. So it is the board's responsibility and authority to pass the budget for the DRETAC funds. And that was given in a prosecutor's opinion from Mr. Devine.
Okay, so my understanding of the concern, if I can capsulize it here, is that this year the request from the DRETAX fund is about $80,000, and the actual amount of money received from DRETAX is somewhere about 55.
Correct.
So the concern is that if we use the DRETAX plus carryover of the DRETAX money, that eventually it would be the burden of the general fund to have to fund this additional money because that DRETAX money would be depleted.
That was my concern.
But if I can interject, Mike,
Sure.
If you cut the carryover, all the money that's in DRETAC was at one time 2.5% of the penalties and was to go to the treasurer's DRETAC. And so my thinking is that not only this year's 55,000, but the 33,000 as well are all a result of 2.5%, which the revised code very specifically says that it has to be put into the DRETAC fund for the purpose of collecting delinquent taxes.
Okay, but my concern is this, Paul. We're proposing $80,000 of DRETAX money be used for your budget this year. And when there is only $55,000 available, where is the other $25,000 going to come from?
From the carryover.
If the carryover is depleted.
Pardon me?
If the carryover is depleted.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit.
How much is in the carryover right now?
$44,949.78.
And I
Bottom of the spreadsheet shows the carryover for each year starting January 1st.
And you'll see that the 2 years that I addressed where there was reductions, the first year was when Damon started actively administering the land bank and NIP grant that we'd received for the land bank, which he received at his choice, no additional revenue for. And then the second reduction, which is this past year, was due to the COVID issue and the budget reductions. But more importantly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the carryovers. We are 26% lower on carryover this year than we were last year. We're 70% higher than we were back in 2016. Now let's look at the Board of County Commissioners. They were only 15% lower this year, where we were at 26, but they're 52% lower than they were back in 2016. We're 70% higher. You'll also notice that I don't spend all the money that I budget every year.
Well, Paul, there are a whole lot more variables when it comes to the overall budget for the county and different requests coming from different departments than there is by a single budget of one elected office. So, I mean, to compare those, it's not comparing apples to apples. It's comparing a single budget, you know, of $300,000 to a county budget of $20 million. There's just no comparison.
I guess I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and percentage wise, why wouldn't there be?
Well, because you're talking about places like the Sheriff's Department, you're talking about DJFS that have a ton of variances throughout the course of the years. You're talking about emergency management services that we're trying to put money away for to build that. We're talking about trying to establish a budget stabilization fund. I mean, there's so many other variables that we discuss as part of the budgeting process that have absolutely nothing to do with the treasurer's budget.
There are things that you don't have any control over, right?
There's things that we do have control over, and there's things that we don't have control over, sure.
Absolutely.
But there are many, many more variables than and I don't mean to say this in any way other than this is a relatively simple budget from the treasurer's office. And we're talking about $300,000 of a $20 million conversation.
So, hey, Mike, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Stacy, Paul, just a couple thoughts. So I think we're talking about two things. And they do all come back, Mike, they fold back into the budget. You know, the one is, first thing, Paul, is your line items being removed or added back in. And then Mike's second point, I think, is the appeared trend of what I call a burn rate, meaning utilizing carryover. And it appears that a collision course is at some point in the future going to happen where the 55 comes in at the top, even if you spend less than you budget the 80, i.e. the 67. You know, so that's I think where Mike's coming from. I just have a couple comments. First of all, you know, Stacy is she's the county administrator and she prepares the budget. She's been doing it a long time. She works with all the electeds, and she's trying to be fair. So when 1,000 comes out of your budget, maybe 1,000 also comes out of somebody else's budget. So I respect the fact she has the big picture. So that's the first thing. That's the process. Number two is, you know, our budget, we as commissioners make our budget based on certified revenue, which you're part of the budget commission. And here we are in mid-January talking about the budget. And I think part of it is the budget process has creeped its way into January. So it's somewhat of a moving target as these new numbers keep trickling in. And if you go back, and it's just kind of confusing. Normally, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, we would have this budget, we would have approved the 17.5. Yes, budget commission raised that at the end of December, just under 18, but we would have had all these budgets put together based on prior year numbers, because that's all we would have had back in October, November. So I think is that true?
Yes, we would have normally started budget process in August and September, but due to COVID and the unknowns, the budget process got pushed back a little bit, trying to wait to see where sales tax was going to come in. So you are correct. It just got delayed this year quite a bit.
So to Paul's point, I think there's some frustration. You know, and Paul, I guess this is what you do. If you, Stacy, can't work it out, then you have to bring it up, you know, like you're doing to the commissioners. when you look at the general fund, I'm looking, you mentioned $4,618 in question. If I heard Stacy right, we're going to add the 1,000 back in for advertising, right, Stacy?
Yes,
That takes us down to 3618. The $2,218 in salary increase, Paul, is new to me today. I mean, I wasn't aware of that. And Stacy, that's part of Paul's, he's brought that up today. Are you aware of this 2218, and has it been addressed in your budget?
it was, we asked all the elected officials to keep their budgets, flat from last year. And in 2020, we didn't approve any increases until after the budget process was done. So the commissioners ended up doing 2% increases for employees mid-January. So there was a supplemental appropriation done in January to do that. But because of the unknown, we had asked departments to keep their budgets flat. So to give them their 2% that we did give them after budget process, that was not included in the budget just because we were holding budgets fast. But it will need adjusted, and it will need adjustment for everybody. But I'm aware of that.
So
I have a question.
Okay, hey, Tyler, excuse me, 1 second. So Paul, if I heard Stacy right, your 2% surprise in salaries, I don't know if that's the right word, is the same for everybody, Stacy.
Correct.
And you're going to, so Paul will be getting credit back for that as well as the rest of the electeds.
Yes, once I get that resolution prepared.
Okay,
Yes.
Tyler, hold your thought a second. So then that takes his 4,600 down to 3,600 minus $2,218 rounded. We're down to $1,400. The supply line, Paul, from 9 to 8. I think, Stacy, how do we treat everybody else, all the other electeds, as far as their supplies are concerned?
I do the same process through all of the general fund budgets. I look at the history and see what has been spent, and usually plug in that number unless the department has the conversation with me saying that this is the year I have to buy this stationery, so it's going to cost me an additional amount. When I send out budget requests in an email, I say, if there's any adjustments that need to be made, please let me know, schedule an appointment with the board. But a lot of these adjustments end up getting done at the last minute, and $1,000 to me didn't seem like it would hurt the treasurer's office, being that he's never spent more than $8,000 in the last 5 years. And
your commission, your job, Stacy, directed by the commissioners, is to go into, this is a question, okay? I'm making a statement. I think your task was to go into 2021 flat level based on the prior year. And Paul, I think you're aware that the commissioners will, at the end of the first quarter, we're going to review all these items. So all the electeds, right, Stacy, all the departments will have an opportunity to come in and make their case for adjustments or needs. The commissioners, we're just not confident and sure that we want to make sure another 3 months of sales tax and revenue and get a temperament going forward of what it's going to look like. So I get where you're coming from, Paul, with the 1,000. I don't really understand, Paul. You had 600, you had 200, you moved 400 from one account up to the 600. Stacy, you brought it down to the 2. I see why you did that. It's not my job to question your thought process. All I want to say is if Paul really needed 600 for repairs, we would find the 400, or would Paul not get it and be put in a bad position, which I wouldn't want to have happen.
absolutely not.
I'll let Paul talk then after this. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So Paul, I'm not sure, how to summarize this up other than I've learned a few things. You've brought to my attention a couple things. We didn't talk about DRETAC yet, but I'll pause on the general fund comments. Paul has a comment, Tyler does, and Commissioner Kirschner, you can take it from there, but that's all I have right now.
Go ahead, Tyler. I know you were trying to get in there.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a question. I was sitting here looking through this budget. So the initial budget for the salaries employees for the salary for the employees in 2016, we're at 53. And then year to date, we bumped it up to almost a little shy of 74 or 73.9. Did we hire a part-time person, or why have the jump in 4 years?
Uh,
I hired a fourth person, but she's being paid out of the DRETAC fund. In fact, you raise another interesting point. She is not getting the entire 47,000. 18% of my other three employees' salaries are also coming out of the DRETAC. Because there's not enough money, I'm not giving enough money to, and I can't raise these with, I can't raise the budget amount without the commissioners doing it. So maybe somebody else has got some input on why it's gone from 53 up to 73, but it's not because of my extra employee.
Yeah, and your new employee, Paul, was hired May of 19. So
Correct.
That's where the big jump would be, and then the full impact would be in 2020.
But not an impact to the general fund budget.
Yeah, I understand.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so one more time, I guess, I'm trying to look at this thing from a big picture standpoint too. So the county total certified amounts in 2018 was 17.5. Tracy or Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Right.
Okay, so and the certified amount in 2020 for 2021 is somewhere in the range of 18 million.
yes. Well, yes.
Okay. Okay, so that is a 2.8% increase from 2018 till now. If you take 500,000 into 17.5, we have over those 3 years increased our total appropriations out of the general fund by 2.8%. Okay. My concern, and I talked to Paul about this, is that if you look at the treasurer's budget from 2018 to the proposed $300,000, that's a 38% increase. So,
Where do you get 300? Whoa. Where do you get 300,000, Mike?
Well, your requested amount in the far right column is $300,736.76.
Well, that includes the DRETAC. We're just talking about the general right now.
I don't know. Well, as we tried to establish, the county has some control over the DRETACs too. I'm talking about the total budget for the treasurer's office. The total budget for the treasurer's office, the full year actual in 2018 was $216,973. Call it 217. The request for 2021 is $300,736. That's 38%. So if we're talking about, comparing your budget and what the decisions we've made to what's happened in the county, there's a significant difference here.
Well, first of all, you're using the full year actual, or you're using the, which number are you using from
2018, the actual amount spent was $216,973.
Right. And you're comparing that to a requested amount of 300,000.
That's correct.
We haven't spent 300,000 and we won't spend 300,000.
Okay, so you got it at 289, which is where we're at right now prior to your request. That's not 38, but it's around 35. So my point is that the county has increased 2.8%. The treasurer's office has had significantly higher percentage of increase than that.
When you're comparing actual to actual, the farthest you can go is 2020, and that would be 274,000. So you,
I did not calculate that percentage,
yeah,
but
because it's gonna
I'm
be
calculating,
smaller.
but I'm calculating it based on apples to apples, and that is
It's
what
not
the counties has been certified for 2021, which is $218,000, which is the amount that we've requested. And the amount that's requested from the treasurer's office is 300,000. So call it somewhat less than that. You may call it 290. Again, I don't have a calculator in front of me to figure that, but I'm doing this by hand. But 38% is 300,000, and I would guess it's somewhere in the 30% range at 289. I mean, those are numbers. So those are in front of us.
But you're not comparing apples to apples, Mike. You're comparing an actual expenditure on one year to a budgeted number of another year. And you can't do that.
But your budget is what you intend to spend.
No, it's
Yeah.
not. It is not what I intend to spend. Look back and see what I've spent compared to what I've budgeted each year. I budgeted 312,000 in 2020 and only spent 274, according to this spreadsheet that we're all looking at.
Well, as I said, I was taking the certified amount for the county and comparing it to the request, which is the two numbers that are comparable. In 2020, the actual amount spent was 274, 287, compared to 2018 of 216, 973. Between those 2 years, the county had 0% increase because both of them were 17.5 certified. Whereas the treasurer's office, somebody calculate 217, 274 for me. I'm not sure what that percentage is, but it's significant.
And the other thing to consider is that because you're talking about DRETAC and the general, which I don't think we should be doing, there's been a significant increase in what we've been receiving into the DRETAC for penalties. We're not really receiving that much more. There it is.
Commissioner Kirchner, just to my quick math, if we take the general fund 2018 193,000 and the actual I forget if I use 206 or 209, but that's a 10% increase.
Well, the numbers, Tony, the numbers that I have,
but the bottom numbers, yeah,
the number I have for actual full year 2018 is 217,000 in round figures.
yeah, and the other
The number that I have for actual 2018 or 2020 is 274.
yeah,
And that's 20. That's 28%.
Yeah, well, 20. Okay, 28% rounded.
Yes. Yeah, that's my point is that if you want to talk about actual to actual, then that's what you got. If you want to talk about comparing it to what the county has done over those 3 years, 18, 19, and 20, we're talking about a 2.8% increase for the total certified amount, and we're talking about actual increase 28% specifically here. Actual.
Well, I'm not sure what the end, what the end is to this. But Paul, it looks like you're spending money within your budget. I think we have a disagreement on general fund of $1,400, and we have a disagreement down in the DRETAC column of $10,000. Stacy's going to make. I'm proposing, Stacy, this is my 2 cents. Stacy, you make your corrections with that payroll, with the 1,000 for advertising, with the revenue down at the bottom on the DRETAC side. I think we've all agreed to that. Yes. And then we'll flush this thing out. And I'm not prepared to. Then I think that's what it ends up being. And then Paul, if you have, I'd like to see you back at the end of the first quarter with everybody else, and we have some discussion as to maybe tweaking it. I mean, the process of how you went about it, how Stacy goes about it, Mike, you make some points, is different. You know, I have to look at the whole county and how we do it for the whole county and how everybody else does it. And I do hear you, Paul, and I do respect Stacy's years of doing this. So I personally think there's a couple disagreements here, but I don't think we're that far apart in any of these areas to, I mean, I don't know, Commissioner Kirschner, what we expect to do, but other than my comments, I don't have anything else to offer.
Yeah, well, I would suggest that each of the commissioners have a separate conversation with Stacy, the county administrator, and have their thoughts given to her as a result of the conversation with Paul. And then have Stacy get back to Paul and tell her what we've decided. We can't do it as a group, as you know, out of session. So we're going to have to do it as individuals.
Can you update this, Stacy, before we, again, it's the advertising money, those couple, 3 items we talked about, revenue.
Yeah, the salaries I wasn't planning on doing today. I've got to get the rest of the salaries done for the rest of the departments.
That's fine. And then Paul, we will all talk to Stacy and we'll get back to you again. I think that's all.
Did we address the contract repairs item?
I brought it up in the fact that if you need more than, at least at the point of this call, we will talk about it afterwards. But
okay, my question, I think, and I may misunderstand this wrong, but obviously we need to get POs in place. And right now, because there's $200 in the contract repair line, we can only have $200 in PO. If we have to send the second machine in for some reason at the same time, even, are we going to have to court order the other 200, or how we can't have a PO in place for it?
We can have an appropriation adjustment done in the same day if money is absolutely needed.
Okay.
And Stacy, you have the authority to do that, right?
I do.
Okay, so
Okay.
Paul, the way you would do that is, I have 200 in my repair line. I'm sending 2 machines in. I need specifically, right, Stacy, I need $393. And she would okay that for you.
Yeah, Commissioner, this isn't anything new.
Right.
And by that I mean it happens, a number of times a year that there's an unneeded piece of equipment that needs to be purchased, or an unneeded or an unforeseen repair bill.
Well, and Paul's fairly new and I'm fairly new. So but Stacy, again, to Mike's point, this happens all the time, and you're not going to unreasonably withhold. That's our process. If you need something, call and we'll do it. Does that help you, Paul, for that one item?
Yep, that was my concern, and I wasn't. Again, I'm not that familiar with the process, and if I would have talked to Miranda, she probably would have known that and told me that, but I hadn't had that discussion. So
Tyler, you've learned a lot today too, haven't you?
Yeah, I think this was all healthy discussion.
It's good.
No, this makes sense to me. I guess I kind of want to see where we're at for the first quarter as well. We're still not out of the woods yet, and we got to keep a close eye on the budget. I understand a lot of the points that were made, but would like to talk to Stacy and a few of you after this and just kind of make sure we understand everything correctly and kind of play it out, see where it goes, and see what Paul needs, and just make sure we get a specified request if it's needed.
I guess the only other thing I want to throw in here to Stacy's comment that when she asked about information about the land bank, that I told her it wasn't any of her concern. In fact, I replied to that email, Stacy. I sent you a copy of our budget, which again had that number at the bottom. I sent you the copy of our minutes, and I also sent you a copy of the checkbook for the whole year. I think I'm trying here. Did you receive that stuff? It was sent on November 24th or 25th.
I received the budget for the land bank. As I said before, I don't do the land bank. I specifically asked you for the amount that you had requested for revenue. And
which was on the budget that I sent you.
Yes, that I don't have nothing to do with. A simple reply of $100,000 would have been great.
Yeah, you were under the impression it was 90.
Yes, because that's where it was certified at the beginning of the year in 2020, which there was an increase requested from, I assume, Paul, because it was revenue, that there was an additional $9,595 brought in for land bank, that adjustment was done in November of 2020. So if additional revenues come in, we and are certified by Budget Commission, we will appropriate those for the land bank.
Okay, any other discussion here? Any other comments? Hearing none, we have supplemental appropriations. This is the next item under the new business.
Yep. So the supplemental, the only one I have is for the computer for tax map. So he will need the $1,131.15 into the equipment line under tax map. And then I have the transfers. I have a resolution for the transfer to be made to the bond retirement fund, moving that $75,000 from the general fund to the bond retirement fund. This is the original bond that we had from 1998 that will go away after 2023. So this is that amount that we will be required to pay for 2021. Already been budgeted. We just need to move it. Same with the Justice Center. I need to do a transfer for the $132,000. That is the estimated budget required by the general fund to the operating fund of the Justice Center. An additional quarter of that will come from the city of Tiffin. I have a transfer to our loan repayment fund for $50,000. This is for the note that we did with NCOESC for the $500,000 for the Justice Center. So that's our payment for 2021. I have a resolution establishing the ability to dispose of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit county-owned property by means of online internet auction as an alternate to public auction or sealed bids, and charging county department administrators or directors with disposal management oversight retroactive to January 1, 2021. This allows the departments to use like GovDeals. Mark Zimmerman, our engineer, uses it often. Our sheriff, a previous sheriff, and I assume the new sheriff will use GovDeals as well to sell items at auction. It just relieves us from having to do the advertising in the mail allowable by law. I have a resolution designating the official representative and alternate for the purpose of voting at the annual meeting of the County Commissioners Association. And I think it was Tony. Let me see if I got the right one. Yes, we did Tony as the designee and Tyler as the alternate. And then I have a resolution appointing member to the revolving loan fund. That would be Tyler Schuff, nominated to replace Commissioner Kirschner. And then I have a resolution entering into an agreement with the Seneca County Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Services for tourism-related services. And I think if you have any questions, I think Bryce was going to be on the call today. And I think, Tony, you were intimately involved with that.
I think we've renewed the contract that was already in place. I noticed in your resolution, Shane's name is on there. I think Bryce sent that over, so we'll make sure Commissioner Shelf's put on there. But yeah, we're real happy with the contract and the direction we're headed. So I believe that we're just formally ratifying that. We did get approval from the prosecutor, right, as it stands. So, yeah, no other comments.
Okay, are those it, Steve?
The additional 1,000 for the treasurer's advertising, and the additional, Paul, do you need 10 or 20,000 for the land bank? You said you increased it to 110,000, not 100? the $20,000 for the transfer?
Yeah, it's reflecting now 110.
So you need the 20.
Yes,
Okay. So that will be into the other expense line so he could get that transferred out. That will be a $20,000 supplemental appropriation.
I make a motion that we accept the supplemental appropriations as presented
And the fund transfers. Thank you, Tyler.
on transfers.
I'd like to make a second, Mr. President.
Okay. Any additional discussion at all, gentlemen?
I just
Hearing
had a
none.
quick, I had a
Yeah,
quick
yes.
question. Sorry. Stacy, so when we're establishing the ability for disposing of unneeded, obsolete, unfit county property, is that something that we have to renew every year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Nikki, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schuff,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes. Okay, Jimmy, I think we've come to the time now. Oh, Bryce, anything you'd like to add? I see you sent a little note here.
Sure, I just want to say thanks to commissioners for their continued support of Destination Seneca County and the Seneca Regional Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Services. Look forward to continue to promote Seneca County far and wide, and looking forward to our continued progress of the organization. So again, thank you for your conversations and your feedback that you've provided in our Tourism Council meets actually here in 14 days from today, which I know is a positive step forward in this relationship and making sure that our stakeholders have a say in what we do and say. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. You know, it's a pleasure to have us.
Yep,
Yes.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say we have Charlene Watkins just messaged me and would like to speak next.
Okay, go right ahead, Charlene.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
I just would like to let you know that regional planning has done an update to one of our pages on our website. It is the community and land development page. This page affects some of the work that we do for the commissioners through community development and the CDBG grant. And we are announcing a new site, which is See Seneca Grow, where residents of Seneca County, excluding the city of Tiffin, because we do not administer community development in the city of Tiffin for CDBG grants, can actually go in and enter ideas and do pre-applications. This does really follow along the lines of what TSEP did for Dream Big for the city of Tiffin, but this is for the Seneca County and to make sure that we can get appropriate projects and ideas for our community development implementation strategies, and to make sure that every citizen has an opportunity to input and provide us their thoughts. We encourage you to take a look at the page. It has been redesigned, and let us know if you have any feedback. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions, commissioners? So I appreciate the number of people who were able to tune in and watch the Zoom meeting. If we want to get as much transparency and as many people participating as possible, but I'd especially like to thank the mayor. I see that Aaron is on, and he's on quite often, and I appreciate him being here and listening to what's going on in the county, because we are able to collaborate and able to get a lot of things done with the city. So thank you, Your Honor, for being here. Anyone else have any comments? Jimmy, why don't you give them the old one? Oh, I see Audrey's. She's unmuted and ready.
Yep.
Yeah, unmuted and ready to go. Go ahead, Audrey.
Like
Good
we're on the
morning,
agenda.
commissioners. Thanks for having us. All right, a couple of updates from TSEP this week. We told you last night, Amy had the great news that we got accredited. She was actually on the news twice yesterday, so watch the local news and you can see those videos on our social media. We wanted to let you know that as of last week, the Paycheck Protection Program is now open again. There's information for businesses on that. The program is kind of expanded and a little bit different now. So the SBA has a lot of new information out about that program, and you can find that on our website, on TSEP's website, senecasuccess.com. We're also announcing today a webinar that'll be going on at the end of the month to talk more about the Paycheck program, as well as other SBA programs that are updated. So great resources for small businesses that we can share. If anyone wants more information on those, send them our way. Also wanted to let you know that the Dream Big Tiffin, the community development initiative that we do for the city of Tiffin, obviously that is city specific, not for the whole county, but as many of you are involved in the city, and hopefully there's lots of city residents that might be hearing this, we are inviting you to participate, give your input, give your feedback on the projects that were submitted. There were 10 projects submitted to that process this year. We want to know how you feel about them. We want to know your comments and your input on those. So just go to dreambigtiffin.com and you can just fill out the little survey and let us know how you feel about the projects that were submitted. The more feedback, the better. And we'd really like to make it as inclusive of the community's thoughts as possible. You can reach out to me with any specific questions on that. And then lastly, as you may have seen last week, we put out a press release with the final report of the CARES grants with the 186 businesses that were assisted through that. And at our office here, we continue to work on the closeout reporting with all those businesses as they submit their documentation to us and helping.
Good.
Audrey, you think you muted yourself.
Yep.
Uh-oh. All right. Where did you lose me? What was the last thing you heard?
We missed the last.
Last 10 seconds, 15.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear the end of Dream Big? Did you hear about the CARES grant report?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So just we're continuing at our office to help businesses work through the reporting process. It's a bit of a tedious process. So we're assisting them through that and working through the end of that cycle for the CARES business grants. Hopefully that filled in the holes there. That's all I have. Do you all have any questions for me or for the rest of the TSEP staff?
Keep up the great work.
Okay, Jimmy, you want to make the announcement about public comment?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few people I see who are joining us through the phone line today. If you'd like to come forward and make a comment during the public comment period, you can hit *6 on your phone. For anyone else, you can just hit the unmute button there and come forward if you'd like to make a comment now.
Okay, the adequate time for silence has passed. So I wish all of you happy and healthy. Jimmy, are we live streaming the Martin Luther King celebration on Monday? Did I see that on our site?
So yeah, that's going to be, that's hosted by the MLK group. I was just sharing that so more people could get the link. And so
Okay.
if you want to join, they're doing the MLK Day celebration this year a little differently because of COVID-19. So it is going to be through, I think, Zoom or one of the other companies that do something similar to Zoom. And so there is a link. You can find it if you go to the Facebook page for Seneca County Commissioners. It was also in the newspaper. So you find the link there and join them for that celebration. Should be a pretty cool event.
Okay, thank you for that. I knew I'd seen something. Okay, hearing nothing else, I will call this meeting adjourned at 11:21 a.m. Thank you all. Stay healthy and God bless.
God bless.